And we are live. Good morning, everyone. I'm Christine von Reisfeld, if you don't know who I am. And I am here today with two friends of mine, or new friends now. LinkedIn is telling us we're not live yet, so I'm going to somehow fix that.
Okay.
But I'll do that while you're talking, Nicholas. And let me do a really brief intro, and then I'll go fix the LinkedIn link. But I just wanted to introduce you to really both of you, or introduce both of you to our audience. So here I have Nicholas Tubach and Dan Weiner, and today we'll be talking about their new company, Propion, and what the potential is for this company. Nicholas is from UC Berkeley, where he's studying cell biology, entrepreneurship, and public health. And Dan is a professor at the Buck Institute for Research on Aging, and he's also affiliated with USC and the University of Toronto. So, Nicholas, do you want to tell us a little bit about how you both met and how you decided to start this company? And then I'm going to go back and fix LinkedIn while you're doing that.
Sure. You want me to answer while you're
yes,
on LinkedIn? Okay. Sure. Yeah.
I will still be here listening. I will just be in the background.
Great. So, yeah, Dan was introduced to me by a friend of mine about a year ago. And my friend was recommending Dan as a potential advisor for an Alzheimer's focused venture that I was launching. And we clicked very quickly. And the reason for that was it became clear that Dan was one of the few people sort of in the know about this family of compounds that I was interested in commercializing as therapies for Alzheimer's disease. But Dan looked at the structure of the compounds, and he had worked with some of them before and knew how they interacted with the body, and was like, well, these can be used for a lot more things than just Alzheimer's. Like, these could be used to treat lupus, ALS, tuberculosis, Alzheimer's, traumatic brain injury, sciatic nerve injury, sort of all kinds, inflammatory bowel disease, like basically you name it, and explained a lot of the science behind that to me. And I just thought, well, if the health effects are so general, then we should figure out some way to make these available to the public rather than just keeping them in the wings as sort of exclusive pharmaceutical therapies. And I said, Dan, like we should start a company to sell a health supplement together with one of these compounds in the product. And I mean, thankfully he was receptive. So here we are.
Yeah, so
I'm just going to ask you to tell us a little bit about you.
Oh, yeah. So when Nicholas approached me about working with him on these family of compounds, I got really excited. I mean, I was advising him for another one of his ventures, but I had some exposure to these compounds before in some of my previous work. So I agreed to take on this really exciting opportunity.
That's great. And I'm glad that you did, because this is something that I think is going to help us in the future. And Nicholas, you mentioned talking about the data and what this could help. So really, first of all, what is this family of compounds that we're talking about?
Yeah, so I can't see the exact name, but I can tell you briefly that these are compounds that are naturally produced in the gut at very, very low levels. Like picomolar levels. And we're mostly just interested in one for the time being. As for the data, Dan is a science guy, and I'll let him say more.
Yeah, so yeah, thanks, Nicholas. So this family of compounds they're somewhat similar to melatonin, but instead of making you sleepy, they have a couple of distinct effects on the body. One thing they have is, like melatonin, they are strong antioxidants. But another thing they do is they bind to receptors in the gut that help maintain the integrity of the gut wall. So why is that important? Why is it important to maintain the gut barrier? And the reason is because scientists think that as people get older or as they gain weight, the gut barrier begins to get leaky. So this weakening of the gut barrier is important because it allows toxins and bacterial products to seep into the body and go everywhere pretty much in the body. And these bacterial products are actually one mechanism that is thought to fuel this thing called low-grade chronic inflammation. Low levels of chronic inflammation in the body is actually one of the major drivers. I mean, there's a number of drivers, but this is one major driver of many age-related diseases. And so dampening this inflammation at its source, for this reason, has potential to impact so many distal organs and tissues. And so these compounds, with this combination of this gut barrier improving effect as well as the circulating antioxidant effects it has, it provides potentially all sorts of benefits throughout the body. And one example would be longevity. And there has been at least one study that I know where where one compound from this family was able to extend a model organism's lifespan at least more than 10 times longer than what some people have found with other anti-aging drugs like resveratrol. Which in resveratrol, as we know, is one of the top anti-aging supplements on the market right now.
And I love the fact that this is something naturally produced in the body. And I think that that's something that would be of interest to a lot of other people out there. My question for you is this. So what is your plan for this sort of like, for lack of a better word, a miracle molecule to market? And why hasn't it, Nicholas, been done before?
So yeah, that second question is actually a very good question, and I get asked that all the time. And I'm going to answer that first because there's two really interesting main reasons why nobody has done this before. And those will also help answer your first question about our plans for commercialization. So the first thing you have to understand is, like, this is really niche science. So the people who are able to find and connect the dots here, like Dan, are going to be pharmaceutical types rather than the people running supplement companies. I mean, you just heard Dan talk. I love listening to Dan talk because he's a cell biology professor. And when we were first talking about this family of compounds, we weren't talking about the idea of starting a company together. I was just sitting there with the cell biology professor sending me this like slew of messages about the amazing things that could be done, but it requires this like unbelievably precise understanding of the gut microbiome and its interaction with the rest of the body to actually see the potential there. And so you actually won't be surprised to hear that 2 pharmaceutical companies have tried making a product containing this active ingredient before, but they both failed, and I'll explain why. Because that answer is part of our competitive advantage. Neither company could figure out how to get enough of the compound absorbed from the gut into the rest of the body, or enough of the compound to not be oxidized as soon as it entered the stomach. And we've partnered with the founder of one of those companies who's developed an absorption enhancing formulation over the last 15 years in an academic setting, but hasn't been able to fund a new venture of his own. So we're sort of standing on the shoulder of those failures. And our proprietary product is going to be a compound in that formulation, which could have been the technology that would have resulted in those other failed companies being successes. Another reason why this hasn't been developed in the supplement world is because there's actually no existing manufacturing process. So like with melatonin, say you can buy thousands of kilos of melatonin from manufacturers as a budding supplement company to package into whatever form you want, whether that be a gel chew, a capsule, a tablet, anything. That pipeline already exists and it's a known quantity. What we have to do, and what we're raising our seed round to do, is take the small scale synthesis process, because if it's a supplement, it has to be naturally synthesized, and scale it up into the mass manufacturing process. So at the end of our first 18 months, we would own the means of production at the front end, we would own the means of production and then also the front end for the product.
All of that is incredibly interesting. And I like the idea of really kind of building up and going from there. I imagine there's a huge market for this kind of thing, and the way that it could really help a lot of the populations out there. I'm sure there are significant benefits. Dan, do you want to talk to us about some of those benefits?
Yeah, I mean,
do you want to put the slide up? for people to
Oh,
view?
yeah. Sorry about that. I'll do that right now. There you go, Dan.
Yeah, I mean, Christine, and there's no question about it. When I, started talking to Nicholas about this, a while back, our initial goal was to do this as a hypothetical pharmaceutical venture. But as these talks matured, the goal was eventually now to get this into the hands of the general public, because there's so many people who could potentially possibly benefit from these compounds. Some of these examples, as we alluded to, would be healthy people who want to live longer and/or healthier lives, people with fatty liver disease or type 2 diabetes, people with certain infections, people with dementia, inflammatory bowel disease, and other intestinal issues. Like Christine, how many people do you know who are always mentioning some sort of gastrointestinal issue to you?
Yeah, it's pretty much me and all of my friends.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, even myself, I'm interested in taking anti-aging compounds, especially ones that are potentially stronger than resveratrol and others.
So tell me, what kind of traction do you have now? I know that the product has yet to be manufactured, but how far have you guys gotten as a company?
Well, I mean, I would say we're actually not doing too shabbily for such a recently incorporated company. And it's that sort of obvious demand that Dan was talking about and the data supporting the proposed product, which is creating momentum for us. I mean, I was able to recruit some truly gifted scientific minds as advisors to get additional eyes on the data. And we floated the product to several people in our target audience, like you, Christine, and immediately they're like, sign me up. When can I buy it? So that's nice to hear. And we're also being sponsored by the Revolution Against Aging and Death Conference to have a booth at their conference in San Diego from October 6th to 9th, because a couple of people from their board saw this and went, well, revolutionary science against aging and death. And so you can catch us there right across from the main stage, and we'll be displaying a small batch of the active ingredient. As for the formulation, we have a letter of intent from the inventor, and that letter also covers a derivative molecule he's discovered that can be patented and commercialized as a pharmaceutical drug, targeting the sort of indications that Dan and I were discussing, rather than as a supplement, because it's not in the public domain. And as far as manufacturing goes, we've sort of just started getting in touch with the different groups who can oversee different steps of that process, from rigging the facility to purifying the active. And of course, manufacturing is going to cost a pretty penny, but the market is basically just too large to ignore.
So I'm going to take that slide down and talk to you guys for just another minute. And we didn't get any comments here while we were live, but I wanted to tell you all that this is a molecule and a compound that I've really just recently been informed about and really interested in. And my focus has always been that future of medicine and really taking that proactive stance to medication. And I think really looking at things that are already in our body and how we can potentially use these to really advance our own health is something I'm fascinated with. So I have joined as an advisor to Propion and really just looking forward to seeing what happens here. And I'll also be at the RAD Festival with Nicholas. And so we'll see you there at that booth across from the stage. But Dan, any other comments, or Nicholas, any other comments that you'd like anyone else to know as we close out our quick little session here?
I'll give you a little bit of backstory.
Go for it.
I started this company with Dan because I want to take a supplement product containing this active ingredient. And I believe that that will be most everyone who gets the chance to see the data, whether or not they be lay people or people with scientific minds. It's very clear what the benefits are once you see those effects from those studies laid out. Even if it takes a minute to process or 30 seconds to process, sort of once you see the wealth of data that's built up and the various ways that these compounds affect your bodies in a beneficial way, it's pretty hard to resist the idea.
And we're learning so much more about the gut biome that, this is a really new and exciting space. So Dan, any closing comments from you as the scientist at Propion. What do you see, and what are you looking forward to?
Yeah, I think the interface between the gut microbiota, the intestinal barrier, and also the immune system living in the intestine. I think this provides a really rich and important environment for study and also for pharmaceutical intervention. We published a number of studies now showing that modulating the gut barrier and also the immune system living in the intestine has potential effects to help the body systemically. I mean, the gut is the home to the largest immune system in your body, and so this immune system has the potential to communicate to many different tissues. And as I alluded to with the gut barrier, these potential benefits that can be harnessed are just starting to seep its way into industry and also into people and to studies right now. And I think I'm just fortunate to have met Nicholas and to be part of this exciting opportunity.
And can I ask you both another question? What do you see as the biggest advantage of Propion over other things that are out there currently?
Dan, I'll let you answer that because you probably have greater insight.
Yeah. So one advantage of this compound now is that, I mean, currently there is no supplement right now that does this right now. So Propion basically would have stronger antioxidant effects than some of the leading compounds right now. Now, I mean, it's not always great to boost, oh, this is the strongest antioxidant or this is not, because antioxidants, I mean, sometimes they can make your natural defenses a little bit lazy, but this antioxidant has its benefits, but it also does so in a non-oxidizing manner with its intermediates. The other thing it can do, which is nice, is that we mentioned it has multiple mechanisms of action, meaning it can also not just act as an antioxidant, but also improve systemic chronic inflammation by modulating the gut barrier and gut microbiota. Not all supplements can do this. And so, and so by, as one of the supporters here and just mentioned, I completely agree with that. By decreasing inflammation in the intestine, you can basically, modulate many different organs and have, anti-aging properties in here. And not all anti-aging supplements will target, multiple pathways. A lot of them focus on one major pathway. Resveratrol, for example, activates something called SIRT1. And while there's no doubt multiple mechanisms of action, and resveratrol does have a dominant effect, whereas this compound potentially can have so many benefits across different tissues from its multiple mechanisms of action. So I think that's one of the unique advantages that this compound provides.
And our comment there, Melissa, is in the fibromyalgia community and is really focusing as well herself on that gut biome and how it affects autoimmunity. So I know this is something that those communities would be interested in as well for those benefits specifically. And so I guess we don't have any other questions, but I want to thank you both for really coming on and explaining. And if anybody has any questions, apparently StreamYard is not letting us put links on there. So I will go individually to each channel and share some links in the comments so that if you'd like to get a hold of Nick or really find out about the work that Dr. Daniel Weiner is doing, you can do that as well. And we would love to hear from you. And if anyone, again, will be in San Francisco for the RAD Festival,
San Diego.
Sorry, I've been off and traveling everywhere that I don't even know where I am at the moment. But we will be there, and Nicholas has a really cool example of the compound in its what is it? What do you call that form, Nicholas?
Just the raw compound.
Raw form of the thing.
Yeah, powdered form.
The powdered form. So we can show that to you if you're interested in seeing it and you're there. But thank you again for all of you for tuning in. And Nicholas and
Thanks
Daniel.
for having us, Christine.
Yeah, it's always great to hear from you, and really anything that can benefit people out there. And I think ways to be proactive about some of these things are things that we really need to look at. So Melissa says, great to hear from you, Dr. Weiner. I don't know if you saw that. She remembers your work from the Buck Institute. So
yeah, thank you also for having me here, and it was fun talking.
Yeah, always. And I'll see you guys soon. And if anyone has any questions, I'll send that info in our comments, and feel free to reach out to Nicholas if you have any questions. Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Bye.
Christine. See ya.
See ya. Hold on.